Well, welcome once again to another edition of Pray on This. I'm your host, John Pray. Before we get started, if you're liking this channel, please hit the like button and subscribe. Today's topic, Kayla Lemieux, Josh Alexander. Is transgenderism out of control in Ontario schools? I come to you today with a subject that's going to get me a lot of hate mail. Let me first state, whatever you believe, I am not phobic of anything, with the exception of snakes and needles. However, I do have opinions, and just because I hold no hate, fear, or ill will to those who are transgendered or are defenders of the trans community does not mean that I cannot say or ask, have you lost your goddamn minds? Kayla Lemieux is the person who we believed was the transgendered shop teacher at the Oakville Transgendered Secondary School in the Halton Region School Board is once again in the news. This time because a reporter and photographer from the New York Post followed them around, and they claim that they took pictures of Lemieux going into their home and then later coming out dressed in male clothing without the wig, makeup, or those unbelievably large breasts to go shopping. Now, since then, Lemieux has contacted Joe Warmington of the Toronto Sun to claim that the picture of the man in the photo is not her. Well, I've looked very close, and the face, it sure does look like the same facial structure in both pictures side by side. However, we could do facial recognition software to be sure. Lemieux also claims she is not transgendered, that she's intersexed, born with both male and female sex organs, and that her breasts are not fake, but very real, and that have mysteriously grown since they went on to female hormones. A condition they claim, and forgive me, gigantomastia? Lemieux claims she received this diagnosis from a phone appointment with a doctor she does not name, and she will state has never seen them in person. Nor do they have any documentation to back up these claims. That seems a little too convenient to me. First, I do not believe that any medical doctor would make that kind of diagnosis about a person's biological sex or breasts growing unnaturally large at a rate unheard of over the phone, even during the height of the COVID-19 pandemic. There are just too many other things that could be causing this that could be life-threatening to do that over a phone call or even a Zoom appointment. To make such a claim is unbelievable and totally insane if you believe it. To say I do not put a lot of faith in the facts of Kayla Lemieux's medical claims would be an understatement. If Lemieux's claims are true, wouldn't you want to have a doctor's note to prove them, remove any and all doubt? Now, don't get me wrong, I have no problem with what an adult does with their life or their body. My problem lies in the following. Ms. Lemieux, I have the same rights as you do, and one of those rights is to say that I find your display offensive. I find your claims unbelievable, and I believe that the Halton School Board should be removed from office for not keeping their students safe and ensuring their education. This sideshow has gone on long enough. Second, neighbors who spoke to both the New York Post and the Toronto Sun have stated that up until Lennox went to work at their current school, they lived their life as a male and were actually quite outspoken against transgenders. What's going on? Is this some kind of scam? Let's see how far we can push this. If the school board fires me or disciplines me, I'll take them to the Human Rights Commission for some legal payday. The last is I have 3 personal friends, all of whom are women, real women. They were born that way. They also all happen to be teachers in the province of Ontario. They teach at different grades and in different boards. But what makes it even more interesting is that one of those teachers teaches at a Halton Region School. And they all tell me that if they dressed the way that Lemieux did to go to work, they would be reprimanded under professional standards. Even more intriguing is the fact that that one teacher who works in the Halton board had a young student teacher back in the fall. That student teacher one day wore a skirt to work that was considered to be much too tight and much too short to be professional. The wearing of such was not acceptable in a school that had boys who were of the age that they would be entering puberty. The school administration used existing board policy to deliver said reprimand. So in Halton Region, if a man wants to cosplay being a woman and dress in a manner that's so outrageous that even a cartoon would not make this kind of depiction, that's okay. But if a woman, born a woman, lived her whole life as a woman, wears too short a skirt, well, that demands a reprimand under professional standards. The next in this insanity comes from the case of Josh Alexander, who in November 2022 was suspended indefinitely from school. His crime? In an open class discussion about gender, he stated there are only two genders. God made you a man or a woman, and just because you choose to say you're a woman, if you were born in the body of a man, you're a man. This got Josh suspended for expressing his religious beliefs. Beliefs proved empirically true by science. From St. Joseph's Roman Catholic School, part of the Renfrew County Catholic District School Board. What brought up this discussion is two students who are trans, but from what I was able to obtain, and there's very little information, have not actually started medical transformation, demanding and being given permission to use the washroom and the change room of their choice. 2 days after young Mr. Alexander was suspended, the teen led a protest at the school. I understand he's quite a politically active young man, against allowing transgendered students to use the washroom and change room of their choice. After this, Mr. Alexander was informed by email that when he was allowed to return to school, no date given, that he would not be able to attend two of his classes because those two transgendered students were part of those classes, and that they would consider it to be violent and triggering if Mr. Alexander was in the same class as they were. During the Christmas break, the teen and his family hired a lawyer, and after discussions with the school and the board, it was decided that Josh would return to school on January the 9th, 2023. However, on January 8th, 2023, Alexander was informed by email by Principal Derek Lennox that his return was not welcome, and that Lennox felt that Josh being at the school would be detrimental to the physical and mental well-being of the pupils. Josh had never once threatened any sort of physical violence. That Josh was also permanently banned from his religion and mathematics class. Josh's lawyer stated his return was to all classes, and when he returned on the 9th, he was followed around by staff of the school all day. Every word he spoke was recorded, and that evening he received an additional 5 days of suspension for not adhering to Lennox's conditions of his return. This was followed by a non-disciplinary exclusion from school and an issue of trespass barring him from school property. Alexander did attempt to attend school once again. He was promptly escorted out of the school by the vice principals and was arrested by the Ontario Provincial Police. He is now taking the principal of the school and the board to the Human Rights Commission on the grounds of religious discrimination. What the hell is going on? Everybody has rights, but where does the rights of a man to dress in not just my opinion, but the opinion of every woman I know in an offensive cosplay of what a woman is, and to force that fetish they have onto children? I know some will say they're teenagers. They are still children, impressionable young minds. There's plenty I did from 1982 to 1988 when I was a teenager that I thought was perfectly fine at the time, but it wasn't. And I didn't know it because I didn't have the fully formed mind of an adult. What gives the principal of the school the right to exclude one student because he may hurt the feelings of two others with his religious beliefs in a Catholic school? Now, I have a little bit of knowledge when it comes to the Roman Catholic Church. I may have been raised Anglican, but when I got married the first time, it was to a Roman Catholic. We raised our children Catholic, and yes, I became one, and was one right up to the moment that the priest found out that my ex-wife and I were getting a divorce. I was informed I was no longer in good standing in the Catholic communion. In a sense, I was excommunicated by the Catholic Church. I know transgenderism is not accepted in canon law of the Church, so please tell me how you can possibly remove a Catholic student from a Catholic school for his Catholic religious beliefs that offend two other students who are practicing their truth that are not accepted by the Roman Catholic Church. I'm not really sure how you can square that. This is woke activism taken to the extreme. The same woke activists that will tell me that I'm a bigot, a racist, and a transphobe applaud Principal Lemieux and the Renfrew Catholic School Board for removing Josh Alexander and his offensive beliefs. They would go further and cancel him from life itself if they could. They are the same people that applaud the Halton Regional School Board for allowing Lemieux to teach students dressed in such an offensive manner. To hell with the students. They have to learn that their rights are secondary to the saintly Lemieux who is bravely living their truth. Or did I screw up her pronouns? These are the same people that during the pandemic screamed, "Stay at home." You're killing people by going outside. They are the Karens that called the authorities if you had a small gathering at your home. They are the same people that said 10,000 people at a Toronto park was a super spreader event, but 3 weeks later, a 50,000 person BLM protest was social justice. How dare you question it? These are the same activists that will call that when it comes to homelessness will tell you that the homeless have the right to camp in a park by a playground, urinate and defecate wherever they want, throw garbage bags, use needles, and the lawlessness that comes at such a camps. That's all okay. But if you were to say, it's my local park and my young children play there, to hell with your privileged children with their proper food and shelter. The rights of these urban pioneers trump you. They claim that the overdose epidemic would be solved if governments making drug use of all kind legal. Ignoring that, in most cases of homelessness, is because mental illness or drug abuse. These are the same people on climate change that will tell you the science is settled and that we must get off oil now or we're going to kill the planet. When you say if we do what you want us to do, billions will die today. They seem to be okay with that. These people will scream, trust the science, when it gives them control, like in the pandemic, during the lockdowns, or when it comes to oil and gas, because they want to control how you live your life. Science is their shield right up to the moment that science says their feelings in science fiction are wrong. If I question the long-term effects of getting a COVID-19 booster every 3 months, I'm not concerned about my health. I'm anti-vax, even though I've been vaccinated and have a booster. Then comes the new holy grail of this religion of the woke leftist. Trans women are real women. Men have periods. Men can get pregnant. You're not a mother. You're a birthing person. You don't breastfeed. You're a chest feeder. If you question any of this new religion, you are a racist, a bigot, a misogynist, a transphobe. They'll even go so far as to say, if you're a straight man who won't date a trans woman, you're a transphobe. When you give them a situation, a hypothetical, if you abandon 100 women and 10 men of optimum reproductive age on an island that has excellent food and water supplies, and then you leave them alone for 100 years, when you come back to study the changes in 100 years, you are going to find a society that has grown, has people of all ages, and is continuing to grow. But if you change the 100 women to 100 trans women, in 100 years, you will find the skeletal remains of 110 men. It's followed by the sound of crickets, and then the screaming, "You're a transphobe." The absolute worst of this group is the fourth generation feminist. They scream the patriarchy, the wage gap, women are still oppressed. But then they will go out and trash women who have been feminists their whole life. Women like J.K. Rowling or Adele. J.K. Rowling because she questioned transgenderism. Adele because she lost weight. They'll call them TERFs, trans exclusionary radical feminists, because they adhere to the hierarchy of victimhood, where a trans woman is a bigger victim than a woman. They will trash Riley Gaines because she felt traumatized, having to share a trophy and then a locker room with Leah Thomas, the 6'4" self-identifying female athlete from Penn State, who up until 2 years ago was on the men's swimming team at Penn State. They still very much have the body of a man, even though they've taken female hormones for 2 years, including their penis. But young Ms. Gaines doesn't have the right to be traumatized when she turns around in a locker room and sees this 6'4" male body, including a penis, staring back at her. No, she's a TERF and a whiner. They're oblivious that they are destroying women's sports and women's safe spaces for men with a mental illness called gender dysphoria. If they're not careful, the women they claim to protect will be under the tyranny of men who enjoy cosplaying women. The time has come to put this type of activism back into its delusional cage. Our society, most of all the women and the children of our society, would be much better off. That is prey on this.